It's not safe to just walk being black in oppressed neighborhoods in D.C. You can't even walk being black without being profiled.
Beyond the name, there's a legacy. Behind the streets, there are stories. This is A King's Police. People all over the world travel to Washington, D.C. to visit historic sites and statues dedicated to American political figures. The Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial was built in 2011 and became the first tribute to a black man in the nation's capital. The city also honors King on a major street that runs through Southeast and Southwest D.C. It was named after the activist in 1971, 3 years after his death. It runs through an area that is predominantly black and marks a significant divide in D.C.'s neighborhoods. And locals say there's an over-policing problem. MLK Avenue is located in Police District 7 and D.C.'s Ward 7 and 8. Stats show that there are more patrol officers per resident in Police District 7 than in other districts that are less black and higher income. And for people who live in this area surrounding Martin Luther King Avenue, interactions with the police are a common occurrence. MB Cottingham was celebrating his 39th birthday with some friends in front of his aunt's house in Ward 8 when 2 police cars pulled up. This interaction eventually led to an unconstitutional body search and what he describes as an assault.
He don't got nothing on him. He don't got nothing on him. He all right? Yeah, don't do that. He don't got nothing on him. He stuck his finger in my crack, man. Don't do that, man. Nah, he don't got nothing. Come on, man. He don't got nothing on him.
What was going through your mind?
My first thought was to make it out of the situation. My second thought was not to become a hashtag. I knew I had been violated, but I was restrained to almost prevent myself from protecting myself. I felt like I didn't have any win in this situation. You know, I was scared, fearful of actually being arrested, but more so fearful of what the officer would do, because this guy was just out of control. Without that video, would anyone believe me?
This is the intersection where MB Cottingham was assaulted by police. To put that into perspective, we're only about 1 block away from MLK Avenue Southwest.
Mr. Cottingham's fight for justice in this case is about more than himself and what happened to him. It's about a community struggling to receive respect as human beings from the officers that police them.
That's Scott Michelman, the legal co-director of the ACLU DC. After the assault, MB reached out to the ACLU and they picked up his case. Despite winning a settlement against the officer involved, the officer still has not been fired.
If you talk to a lot of members of the community, you'll hear similar stories about aggressive tactics, often in the predominantly African-American neighborhoods in the city. And so you've got a picture of a portion of the city under siege from the police. Although this was a particularly egregious example of that, we don't think that the fact that we settled this case means that that problem has gone away.
And that's exactly why some community members in DC are fighting back.
So I'm on my way to meet up with Nene Taylor, who's a lead organizer with Black Lives Matter DC. She's going to tell me a little bit about what policing looks like in black neighborhoods here, especially around MLK Avenue Southeast. Tell me a little bit about your personal relationship with the police.
Oh, I don't trust the police at all. If I see a police car come behind me, I automatically have an anxiety attack. I have a video cam in my car just like they do, just to video in case they stop me because I don't feel safe.
Tell me about what it is that you do with Black Lives Matter.
We intervene and we're concentrating in Wards 7 and 8, which is the oppressed neighborhoods in DC. And actually we go around, just pick target areas where we know that the police presence is heavy and they're harassing black people. So we go to those areas and just monitor the police within the stop to make sure that people's civil rights are not being violated.
Nene wanted to show me some different areas of MLK Avenue. Before we got in the car, I got a little taste of what she and Black Lives Matter DC have been fighting against in Ward 7 and 8.
Y'all make the streets safe?
Always.
Y'all run or y'all harass
So, what just happened over there?
When we were leaving the art center, it was several police officers with new cadets on the corner of MLK. And I'm asking where they're going, and they're going into the art center where we just left. The police have never came in there like that. So that was really triggering for me.
Ain't no community in there. That's their safe space.
We know it's a business check. Well,
A business check? Oh my God! Oh my God!
The police said they were called to perform a business check. Scott says that business checks are another way police will justify their presence in neighborhoods.
Whether they call that a business check or make up facially bogus reasons for going onto private property, it's difficult to explain some of the things that MPD does other than by a motive to intimidate, to show their power, to let members of the community, and again, particularly the African American community, know who's in charge.
At DC's Georgetown Law School, Professor Chris Henning runs the Juvenile Justice Clinic and Initiative, where she defends young people who've come into early contact with police.
Which areas of DC do the majority of your clients come from?
One of the best ways to answer that is to look at school-based arrests. The data shows that there are more security officers per student in schools in wards 5, 6, 7, and 8, which are the wards with the lowest income and the most black students. Black children are policed for normal adolescent behaviors in ways that white children would never be policed. So I like to think about the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? It is an 80s mainstream flick in which adolescence is completely glorified. You're never gonna find a Malik Johnson's Day Off, right? You know, it's just not gonna happen. I think the key takeaway is that blackness is perceived as a threat. We have so far to go in rethinking or reimagining policing in African American communities.
Martin Luther King Jr. is perhaps most remembered in Washington, D.C. for delivering his notable "I Have a Dream" speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. In that same speech, many forget that King addressed police brutality. He said, "We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality." And it wasn't the only time he spoke out on the subject. More than 50 years later, there's still work to be done before King's dream can become a reality. And that's why organizers like Nene Taylor don't plan on stopping either.
Listening to you talk about your work, it seems really dangerous. Why do you do it?
Same reason that Harriet Tubman did it, the same reason Rosa Parks did it, the same reason Ada Wells did it. Somebody got to do the work. Somebody got to get us free.
But one day, this nation will